welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Eva. Today we're going to be talking about seasonal affective disorder. And I know that this is thrown around a lot, but I don't feel like a lot of people talk about it enough, yet I think it affects a lot of people, and I don't think people quite know what to make of it, where it comes from, what to do about it, why it happens in the first place. So we're going to be discussing the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder today, why it happens, what the causes are. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to join my mental health community. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and comment down below if you have been diagnosed with seasonal affective disorder and what kinds of things have worked for you. So we're going to start off with just the basic definition of seasonal affective disorder, also known as SAD, S-A-D. And the definition of this is a type of depression that happens that occurs with the changes in the season. And a lot of people say, oh, I have the winter blues, I feel a little bit down during the winter and fall months, but this can actually also happen during the spring and summer. And the symptoms do look a little bit different, and we will go over that in a little bit later in the video, but it's basically a change in mood based on the time of the year. With this being said, these symptoms tend to happen annually. Not all symptoms will be the same necessarily, but you would experience these mood changes during around the same time of the year every year, or notice some changes within yourself occurring around the same time of the year. For example, if you do experience depression during the winter months every year or during the fall every year, it might be something to take a closer look at. Just to throw some statistics your way, about 5% of adults experience this. And again, I don't feel like this is talked about enough. I think that a lot of people just attribute it to general depression or anxiety, which the symptoms do overlap. But again, if it's occurring every year, it might be something to take a closer look at. It does tend to begin in young adulthood and affects women more than men. Seasonal affective disorder is actually more common in those who also have depression or some sort of mental health issue, especially mood disorders like bipolar disorder, where there are mood changes already present, and can also affect those who have a family history of seasonal affective disorder or have family members who also struggle with mental health issues. One more thing to point out is it is more common with those who live in areas that actually have less sunlight. And again, we will talk about why in a little bit. What's interesting is I attribute these symptoms of fall and winter seasonal affective disorder to more depressive symptoms, and the spring and summer seasonal affective disorder symptoms to more anxiety symptoms. For example, someone experiencing the fall and winter seasonal affective disorder, they will experience an increase in depressive symptoms such as increased weight gain from lack of energy or overeating, increased fatigue, maybe feeling cold, lethargic, not really having interest in typical activities that they are usually interested in, maybe some isolation, like keeping to yourself, not really being social with friends and family, or just getting out of the house. Really just staying in bed all day, that lack of energy, that lack of drive, that lack of motivation to do much. Sleep can definitely be affected in terms of sleeping too long or too much every day, becoming irritable or easily agitated or maybe more angry, feeling hopelessness, feeling helplessness. So all of these symptoms are very common with someone who's experiencing fall and winter seasonal affective disorder. Whereas someone experiencing spring and summer SAD, not exactly the opposite, but definitely more agitation, restlessness, increased anxiety. Their sleep is affected, but not in terms of oversleeping, but they actually experience less sleep. So having trouble falling asleep, having trouble staying asleep, not sleeping enough. Instead of eating too much and having increased appetite, people with spring and summer SAD will have a decreased appetite and actually eat less. This can also lead to some weight loss. So although I'm pointing out the symptoms of fall and winter versus spring and summer, there is that overlap of symptoms. Symptoms can be different for everybody. So although I'm going over all of the symptoms that typically relate to fall and winter versus spring and summer, this is definitely not some cookie cutter explanation of what everybody experiences, and there's definitely some overlap. For example, someone experiencing fall and winter and spring and summer can experience irritability or mood changes or depression or anxiety. It really depends on the person. So with all of these symptoms being said, I think it's so important right now to mention that this is in no way any type of diagnosis, and you should really avoid self-diagnosing. If you feel like you have some of these symptoms, or you feel like you've experienced these things before or on a regular annual basis, definitely have an assessment done by a mental health professional or a doctor, just so you can take a look at your individual needs and really see what's going on. So now that we've talked about the symptoms, why does this actually happen? So a lot of research has been done on this topic, but there is still a lot of speculation as to what actually causes seasonal affective disorder. One of the biggest causes that has been highlighted in several research studies in terms of relating to seasonal affective disorder and having an impact on it is the role of serotonin. And serotonin is known as the happy neurotransmitter, and it plays so many roles in the human body, but one is to regulate mood. And so when the sunlight changes, when the seasons change, that impacts our mood, that impacts serotonin production. For example, in the fall and winter, the clocks change, there's less sunlight, and sunlight is related to serotonin production. So if there's less sunlight, our bodies are not producing enough serotonin, and this can have a great impact on our mood. And that's why someone who does experience seasonal affective disorder will struggle during the fall and winter seasons to find that energy, and they tend to become more lethargic and depressed and have a little bit more trouble getting out of bed. And that's the same for spring and summer. There's an excess in sunlight. And so this does have an impact as well on serotonin levels. And that's why someone who has spring and summer seasonal affective disorder, although much more rare, will have trouble with agitation, anxiety, not sleeping enough, not eating enough. So this is one studied cause of seasonal affective disorder in terms of serotonin levels. But we can't just focus on serotonin, because there has also been a lot of research on melatonin as well. And melatonin has a huge role in sleep cycles. The lack of sunlight, again, has an impact on melatonin, but in this case, the lack of sunlight actually overproduces melatonin and then leads us to become more drowsy, more lethargic again, unable to find that energy because our bodies are thinking, hey, it's dark out, it's time for sleep. So this is very important when focusing on seasonal affective disorder, because some people are a bit more sensitive to these changes, especially, as I already mentioned, individuals who already experience mental health issues. Another thing to mention about sunlight is vitamin D production, and vitamin D production is so closely related to serotonin as well. The more vitamin D we have, the more serotonin production we have. The more sunlight we have, the more vitamin D production. So the less sunlight, less vitamin D, less serotonin. So it's all connected, as you can see. And, it might not seem like a lot just having an hour less of sun in the day, but that can really affect people, especially those who are more sensitive to the sunlight. One very important cause that I wanted to talk about as a therapist that is not as studied as the serotonin and melatonin causes, but definitely a huge factor when taking into consideration seasonal affective disorder, is the associations that people have throughout the year. So although chemically there's things going on, there's also potential for there to be emotional and psychological things going on as well. So for someone who experienced trauma during a certain part of the year, or a loss of a loved one during a certain time of the year, or just something stressful happening that really impacted someone's emotional and psychological health, during that time of the year, it is not uncommon for someone to experience emotions that are difficult to deal with, even though the stressor has passed. This is so true because we hold so much of what we experience in our bodies, and our bodies can sense what time of the year it is. There's so many different environmental factors that cue us to know what time of the year it is. I don't know if you have ever experienced during Christmas time. A lot of people are very happy, but there's also a lot of people that are very sad, and you can't really place why. You might have a memory during that time of the year that might be sad or might be troublesome or might be stressful that you might not be fully aware of, but your body is very aware of that happening. Or school starting, when school is about to start. School can be stressful for some people, and then it can bring on some depression just based on environmental cues. If you've ever lost a loved one or a friend around that time of the year, you can feel those emotions coming back up, even though it might not come to you right away. Why? Your body, again, knows. So there are a number of treatments that are used when addressing seasonal affective disorder, and one of the major treatments that is used is light therapy. This involves sitting in front of a light box for a certain period of the day, which can really help with that serotonin regulation. In addition to this, going outside more, even though you might not feel like you want to, going outside, getting as much sunlight as possible, getting as much light as possible, maybe through windows in your house or at work, in your office, that can really have a huge impact, a positive impact on seasonal affective disorder. Also being very aware of your schedule and the time differences that occur throughout the year. So if you notice that there's fewer hours in the day or more hours in the day based on the clock changes, see if you can adjust your schedule in a way that works for you. Just because these changes are occurring, it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to stick to your same schedule. See if you can change it in a way that has a positive impact on your body and mind rather than a negative one. With maintaining the schedule changes, this relates to sleep, and sleep is so crucial when it comes to seasonal affective disorder, just because you want to stay regulated with sleep, especially in terms of melatonin production and serotonin production, to be honest, because maintaining a healthy sleep routine is just so crucial in regulating your body. So find a sleep routine that works for you in response to all of these changes that are going on. Psychotherapy is also a great way to address seasonal affective disorder, to address some of the issues that I talked about before in terms of maybe experiencing a time of the year that really causes you stress, a time of the year that you may have experienced some trauma or hardship and it's been difficult for you to cope since. So speaking to a therapist or a licensed mental health professional can start to uncover some of those hidden emotions that are going on within your body and help you work through some of those issues that might still be coming up psychologically every year for you. As always, self-care is so important when addressing anxiety and depression, along with healthy coping mechanisms that you know have been effective for you. As much as you can, try to take care of yourself, maintain those self-care routines, give yourself a little bit of extra love and care during these times of the year that really affect you. Staying social is so important as well. Just like getting out of bed and going outside, even though you might not want to, staying social and interactive with loved ones or family or friends or going to social activities, very important as well to maintain your health. Basically avoiding staying isolated. And finally, relaxation and mindfulness techniques. Now, this is great for depression, but in terms of more of those symptoms that revolve around anxiety and restlessness and agitation and maybe not sleeping as much as you should, relaxation and mindfulness techniques can be very crucial in addressing some of that hyperactivity or restlessness feelings that you might sometimes get during the spring and summer if you're affected during that time of the year. In terms of depression, mindfulness can help you stay in tune with your feelings and really check in with yourself and meet yourself where you're at. Thank you so much for joining me today in discussing seasonal affective disorder. Again, if you feel like you're struggling with this, don't hesitate to get assessed by a licensed healthcare professional. It definitely affects more individuals than I think people believe it does, and it can be a little bit more serious than just the winter or summer even blues. So important to really examine what exactly is going on. Okay, that's all I have for today. Thanks again for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe and I will see you next time. All right, bye everyone.